A custom build by Haste Repair Group. This one is a nice budget put into a Thermaltake PC tower case. There's no windows in this one, and because of that I decided to make it less flashy and put no RGB fans at all, and just keep everything nice and black and sleek looking. So we see here on the front we have an optical drive, USB 3.0, 2.0, headphone and mic input. There's a intake fan I put on the top because there was no room for an intake fan on the front grille. And on the inside, onto the hardware, the important stuff. This has a Intel i5-4570 CPU, 16 gigabytes of DDR3 1333 megahertz RAM. There's another look at the exhaust and intake in the back of the optical drive. And here we have the Gigabyte Windforce edition of the GTX 760 2GB graphics card. This is an older card, but it actually performs very well, as you'll see, even with some slight adjustments using MSI Afterburner. There's the Thermaltake Smart 500 watt power supply. I installed a 160GB Seagate Barracuda storage drive. There's a 256GB KingFast SSD and a Samsung 128GB Windows boot drive SSD. And this is all on an ASUS motherboard. I'll put the actual model of the motherboard here. I can't remember at the moment, but anyways, on the rear I/O we have old style PS2 mouse and keyboard, DVI, VGA, and HDMI display ports, 2x USB 2.0, 4x USB 2.0, 2x USB 3.0, RJ45 Ethernet, audio in and out on the back of the graphics card, 2x DVI, HDMI, and display port. So on to the games. Here we have the Counter-Strike Benchmark, and this offers some pretty high frames per second, averaging on scenes like this around 140 to 150 frames per second. And once we get into this dense fog, it does dip down to roughly 40 some odd frames per second, but fairly normal, I think. And here's Dead by Daylight. On high graphics you get around 50 to 60 frames per second on average, and on medium graphics settings you generally get an average of 60 frames per second, and this is with VSync activated. And onto Skater XL, average around 45 to 60 frames per second depending on what's going on. And this is with little adjustment or no adjustment with MSI Afterburner, so I suppose you could increase performance if you wanted to. And another thing to note is that VSync is turned on. As I find with this game, you don't need a high frames per second count necessarily. The Rise of the Tomb Raider benchmark looks pretty nice. You can definitely play this game on high settings, and this is with VSync activated as well, which I found to have better performance. And Tomb Raider 2012 VSync is off for this one, which is why we're getting on average 150 frames per second. So this game runs very well in this system, no problems. And the Unigine Heaven benchmark offers some very favorable results, as well as the Valley benchmark. And we have the Superposition Benchmark coming up as well. Overall, I'm actually really surprised that this system runs so well. The SSDs and 16 gigs of RAM, and the GTX 760 and the i5 is a pretty solid combo for a budget. So hopefully that helps you out.